Hi, good morning. Good morning. It's 10:20 here in upstate New York at Onondaga Community College, and this is Terry LaQueen Battle. Welcome again to Happy Tuesday morning. It's Tuesday, February the 4th. Happy Tuesday morning to my subscribers and my YouTube. I have about right now 35 subscribers. So I'm very, very excited and very, very happy for that. So shout out to all my YouTube subscribers and you can also follow me on Facebook as well. So shout out to you guys. I love you guys. Today, pretty much, hello, hi, welcome, hello, shout out to my one listener. Thank you. Hi, thank you for joining with me today. Okay, so pretty much, all right, maybe myself, I'm the listener, I don't know, but pretty much I'm just going to go ahead and follow up on a lot of pretty much on some topics that really concerned me. Like I talked about in my last video, it was pretty much on Make America Great Again, MAGA, and the U.S. Trump administration still enforcing prejudice and hate against immigrants in this country. And which is very, very important to me because I am a product of that case, that 1956 case, which is Brown versus the Board of Education. I am, in my mid-30s now, and I was able to go to predominantly white schools, predominantly private white schools, and in Texas, as well as in California, and Central Texas and California. And I was able to be educated in America. I received free education here in America as a black child of mixed descent. And so it really does personally affect me as well as my family and those around, I know, because I'm currently studying child development here at Onondaga Community College and drug addiction as well. So today we're just going to talk a little bit, kind of dig a little bit into what's going on with the Trump administration policy against immigrants, as well as listen to a little bit of Dr. King's speech on the three evils of society. So again, this is LaQueen Terry Battle. I'm just going to do a little brief introduction and just go ahead and shout out to my one listener. I think it might be me, but I do see somebody who is watching this as well as me today. So today, it is February, so it is Black History Month. So it is Black History Month and February in the United States as well around the world. So I just want to go ahead and give a shout out to all the minorities and people around the world, as well as those of African descent, who celebrate this history as a milestone for their progress. But we haven't really made progress in our country until we actually make progress with ourselves. So I'm dealing with a lot of issues and situations here. In my first year in New York, and dealing with people on the street, being a single woman, and also learning my own culture, my own genealogy, and my own history. Rather than doing it by DNA, I'm actually doing everything manually, by book, by page by page by page. So I'm going to go ahead and just go ahead and give a couple shout outs, but this is what I really wanted to follow up on, the segregation, and this is why I have the topic today. This is in the Syracuse News Post. This is on Friday, January the 31st, right here. This article, it says, parents thwarting efforts to desegregate. This is in the Syracuse Post Standard, the Syracuse News in upstate. Now, this is in upstate New York. This is in upstate New York. So you can imagine what's going on, that the news is not being heard of or talked about all around the United States as well as in other countries. So this is right here in upstate New York. This story is happening in Virginia. This story is in Virginia, but this is upstate New York. The newspaper posted this about parents thwarting. This headline doesn't make sense. The headline doesn't make sense. Whoever wrote this headline is stupid, because people need to understand what's really going on. Because when they write a headline like this, they don't want people to know. They don't want people to understand. But really, it's really saying is that parents are doing their very, very, very best to continue desegregation of schools, and rather say thwarting like I'm thwarting from the law. It's pretty much, they should have said parents continue efforts to desegregate. That's how they should reinforce that title, because it really doesn't make sense. Actually, I should write to the editor right here. I should write to the editor and let them know that, you know what, this title doesn't make sense. People really need to know what's going on, because it's reality. People really need to understand that this is not about happiness. This is not about making America great again or keeping America great again. Parents, people out there, not just white parents, not just Black parents, but actually Latino parents and Irish parents, and a lot of parents that don't want their kids in the same classroom, don't even want their kids to go through the same door, other students to go through the same door as their kids. So pretty much it's in a Syracuse Post editor right here, parents thwarting efforts to desegregate. Parents thwarting efforts to desegregate in the Syracuse Post right here. Right here, Syracuse Post. Parents thwarting efforts to desegregate. What does that mean? That means desegregation is real. That's exactly what it means. It means desegregation is real and it's still out there. I don't even know the website for the Post. That's what it means. You know, I try to explain to people. I should really actually show people what this means, because it's really out there. Who wrote this article? It's really it's by Regina, Garcia, Cano, and Sarah Rankin. It's the Syracuse Post Standard, Friday, January 31st. This was just last Friday. Just last Friday. They're talking about this in the news. Segregation is still real. Just last Friday. Just last Friday. Just last Friday. What is the website to Syracuse right here? There we go. Here we go. Here's the website to Syracuse newspaper. Here's the website. You can also call them at 315 470. Right here. Parents thwarting efforts to desegregate. See, this is not a protest about businesses being shut down. This is a protest against parents who don't want their kids in the same classroom as other low-income kids. This is a protest. This is not a strike. This is a protest of parents who want segregation instilled in American schools. And this is in Virginia. What city this is in Virginia? This is in Ellicott City, Maryland, and Virginia. This is in Maryland. Maryland, predominantly Black state. Predominantly Black. But you know what? You see all those parents right there? Well, those parents. Upper class. Yeah. That's how it is. And they try to take it, make America great again. Don't make America great again. Keep America great again. Keep America great again. You know what I'm talking about? No. No, it's not. It's not the same. It's not the same. It should be different. It should be different, but it's not. It's not different. No, it's not different. It's not different. It's not different at all. It should be changed, but it's not. And it's really sad to see that people, they want things to stay the same. They really want things to stay the same. It's really, really sad. It's really, really sad. Let's see what else. Participants pop out chat. Toggle times that. You know, that people should be changing here in it's a new millennium and a new decade. It's a new millennium and a new decade. 2020. You think it's a new millennium and a new decade, but people, they don't want to change their opinions. People, they don't want to change. And we're going to listen to Dr. King in a little bit. So happy Black History Month to all you guys out there. Yes, it's 2020. It's a new decade. It's a new millennium. It's a new decade. And you know what? People still look, they don't want to change. They don't want to change at all. They want things to stay the same. Yeah. Yeah, integration to segregation, yeah. They want things to stay the same. The mood is the same, the attitude is the same, it's the same person, we're on the same level, we have the same income, everything's the same. You came from the same background, same neighborhood. They want these to be the same level, the same level. Right here, Syracuse Post, Friday, January 31st, the last day of the month. I'm gonna read it, I'll read it a little bit here. It's real sad right here. I'll read it. It says, I'm gonna continue. Okay, it says right here, it says, while the federal government has largely stepped back from the aggressive role it played decades ago in school desegregation, some local districts have acted in recognition of increasingly apparent racial divides and the long-established educational benefits of integration. In Howard County, Maryland, a suburban community between Washington and Baltimore, one parent who supports reforms limited the presence of concentrated poverty in certain schools and concentrated wealth in other schools. When we have concentrated poverty, those students are not getting the same quality of education, says Don Pop, a white mother of 2 students in local schools. And then it continues here. It says, the Supreme Court has ruled that race cannot be used as a driving factor in assigning students to public schools, but more than 100 school districts have implemented voluntary desegregation plans that work around that ruling by mixing students from families with different incomes or educational levels, factors often associated with race, according to Richard Kallenberg, a senior fellow at the Century Foundation in Washington, D.C. It continues. And then it says right here, it says, race and class divisions were on display for months, years, last year after the Howard County School Board directed the superintendent to start a comprehensive redistricting process. So instead of calling it segregation, they're now calling it redistricting. The Howard County Council in August requested that the blueprint address socioeconomic and racial segregation across the school system, which serves about 59,000 students and children, the majority of whom are minorities. These children are mostly low-income students that are Black and Hispanic. The superintendent originally proposed moving some 7,400 students to different schools. The overwhelming opposition was led by The overwhelming opposition was led by white and Asian families who protested near an area mall and flooded public meetings. So you have white and Asian families protesting against this. Now, when you think of white people, it's not just, I think they're just being a little bit more discriminative, but white people, it could include anybody. Because, when you call somebody a white person, not just calling them, oh, they're white American, they have white skin, blonde hair. No. A lot of people, they define themselves as white by their culture, not by their family history. And a lot of people, they don't address that. You're white by your ethnicity, you're not white by your family. It's so ridiculous. It is so ridiculous when you call somebody white, especially here in New York City. When you call somebody white, you really have to figure out where they're coming from. Because a white person, they could be Italian, they could be German, they could be Jewish, they could be African, mixed. They could be a mixed African American and a mixed white American and still call themselves white. They could be a Mexican American, but they define themselves as white. They can be Black and still call themselves white. So that's what a lot of the Trump policy administration has done. It has changed the ethnicity of Americans. So when you see now, when you do the census or when you apply for a job, it usually asks, are you white, Hispanic, are you white, Hispanic, or non-Hispanic? Are the races? Are you mixed heritage? And so right here it says white and Asian, but really it doesn't include everybody because it really doesn't want to talk about it. Because segregation has more to do than just white or Black. And segregation really doesn't have to do with white or Black. Really, segregation has to do with class. You're upper class or you're lower class. That's really about what segregation is all about. It really doesn't have to do anything with white or Black. It's more if you're colored. Like I heard one of my classmates say yesterday in class, if you're colored or if you're not colored. I'm like, why is this colored term coming up in Syracuse, New York in 2020? Because it's true. And a lot of Latino people nowadays, even people like Jennifer Lopez or Shakira even, they might not call themselves Puerto Rican or Latino, they can just call themselves white. I'm white. And that's how they live their life because it's all about class. And this right here. So segregation has a lot, like I said, it has more to do with class than race or ethnicity. And they don't want to address that. They don't want to address that at all. This is Friday's paper. Continue this. And it says, right here, it said, desegregation. Continue with 8.4. It says, Then it says right here, it says, George Henry, a retiree in Ellicott City, wrote in a newspaper op-ed that his children, now in their 30s, receive good educations in the local schools with highly diverse classmates. He said that artificial and forced mixing is unnecessary, he told the Associated Press. The fundamental factor to closing the achievement gap is the support students have at home, which is not up to the county. Really? Really? That's so funny because he thinks that these kids of low income and low class and low education should be taught at home rather than getting the same opportunities in a better neighborhood across town. So teach these kids at home, let them learn, let the parents teach them what this is all about. I don't want my child around this child. They should learn it all at home and in their own neighborhood. They should stay in their own neighborhood. Really? Yeah, he says right here, he says that artificial and forced mixing is unnecessary. Really? Are you saying the Brown versus Board of Education 1956 civil rights case was unnecessary? Really? And then it says right here, it says another person, Mr. Pop, said that scaled back redistricting sends a message that people who can afford the matching T-shirts and the fancy signs and have time to organize can get their own way. It says right here, it says another parent, Cynthia Fikes, whose son attends Wild Lake High, said that the redistricting debate revealed the level of fear and disdain that much of the community had for people unlike themselves. She said racist and classist statements were allowed to pass as conversations at meetings and on social media. When you look back at what is said, it is so hurtful, said Ms. Fikes, who is Black. It is horrible. And it just continues. It says, the article continues as, of course, to integrate some of those most segregated schools were included in last year's rezoning process, which also aimed to ease overcrowding and fill new school buildings. So it's not just to mix the students together, but it's actually to fill a need. The schools are getting more crowded. They're having more immigrants. They're having more students. The population of these students is increasing in these low-income neighborhoods that the school districts are forced to put these students somewhere else. It's not just about a racial issue. It's about an overcrowding issue, as well as the immigrant population increasing so much. The Latino immigrant population is increases so much that eventually, which is probably already known, that Latinos have a majority over white Americans. That the Latino population is greater than white American population. And Trump does not talk about it at all. Are you serious? There are more Mexicans in the United States than white Americans? Yeah. Really? Yeah. There are more Mexican immigrants in the United States today than there are white Americans. Yeah. Mexican, not Puerto Rican, not Cuban, Mexican. And they're talking about, oh, we want to go back to desegregation. We don't want these blacks or these Mexicans in our school because they're low income. And usually when you talk about somebody from Mexico or from Africa, from Syria or Nigeria, or even Muslim immigrants, when they come to this country and they take a little bit of what we have, they take their own education, they bring their own educational schools here, they have their own schools here. All they need to do is take just, especially with Mexican Americans, because they don't come here by themselves, they bring their whole families with them. You don't see Mexican Americans arriving to the United States by themselves. Mm-hmm. They take a little bit of what we have, a little bit of our resources in America, and then they send money out to their family in Mexico. They send money here to the family in the United States, and then they take care of themselves. This is Mexicans. They send money back to Mexico. They send money to their family here in the United States. And then they keep a little bit, 20% or 30% or whatever for themselves. That's just Mexicans. What about all the other immigrants? And Black Americans as well. Do you think that us as a African American people, as a culture, do you think what would happen if African Americans did this right here? If African Americans as a whole entity, as a culture, as a group did the same thing right here. And it doesn't even have to be Mexicans. You know who else it is? When they come to this country? Syrians. And when Syrians come to the United States, they don't just bring abuelo and abuela, a primo and prima, a mama and daddy. No, when Syrians come to the United States, they bring at minimum 20 of themselves. They don't just come by themselves, they bring their whole family. You see them at the airport, you see them, because they got a grant. They were involved in a program to help get them out of that war-torn country. But you know what? The Trump administration, they don't talk about that. They don't talk about the programs out there to assist immigrants escaping from war, escaping from genocide. You don't hear about Mexican genocide, but you hear about Syrian genocide. And the current administration, our current commander-in-chief, he doesn't talk about genocide. He just talks about that these people are bad and that they're dangerous. So we don't want them in our schools. We don't want them past our borders. We don't want these people in the United States. We want to bar them from even buying a plane ticket. And yeah, I forgot to introduce myself. You know, my name is LaQueen Arlene. I go by Battle. I'm here at Age Seekers. I go by Terry, T-R-I-E. I'm a certified medical assistant. I have 3 degrees, one in medical assisting, another Associate of Arts in Liberal Arts and Spanish, in psychology, and I have another degree from Purdue University in Spanish culture and the Spanish linguistics language with honors. And I'm working on my fourth degree, my fourth program here at Syracuse on child development and drug addiction. And when you hear the current administration, the current Trump administration talk about we don't want immigrants in our country, we want to build a wall against Mexicans, we want to bar Syrians from crossing into our borders. And he doesn't even call Syrians terrorists. No, he doesn't call Syrians terrorists. He just says they are unfit people and we don't want them into our country. Have you ever heard of a Syrian terrorist? Have you heard of a Syrian terrorist? Have you heard of a Syrian terrorist? No. No. You haven't heard of a Syrian terrorist, but the president talks about it all the time. He talks about we don't want Syrians into our country. They're bad. They're bad for business. They're bad. They're bad people. They're dangerous. They're criminals. They're nasty. They're dirty. Syrians. You met Syrians? Have you ever met a Syrian? Have you met a war-torn person from another country? What's the first thing when you meet somebody, an immigrant that's escaping from war and poverty? What's the very first thing you notice when they come to America? When you see them at the airport, what's the very first thing you see them? They're very humble people. They're very polite. They're very pleasant. Very pleasant. They kiss the ground we walk on. They kiss the dirt. They kiss the pavement at the airport. When they arrive from the airport and go to the terminal, they kiss the ground when they walk through the step, walk down the airplane, steps of the airplane. They bow down and they kiss the ground that we so hardly take for granted. The ground. They kiss the ground. They kiss this ground that we put dirt on and we spit on every single day, that we as Americans take for granted. And they raise their hands high to thank their God, their creator, whoever it is, Allah, I don't know, whoever, God, Jesus, whoever. They kiss it, what we take for granted. Syrians. And this is the immigration policy that Trump is now trying to instill. It even continues. I mean, this is the Syracuse time. This is Friday's Syracuse time right here. I was going to listen to Dr. King a little bit. I think I got a little bit more time left in the library. So I have like a class this much time anyway. And here in the New York Times, it's the Wall Street Journal, it's talking about the American dream is still alive and well. This is today's, Saturday, Sunday, February 1st. Talk about the American dream is alive and well. And you have a black man right there, a white woman, and a white man. A black man, a black male, an Asian woman, and a white male saying, oh, the American dream is alive and well. Really? And it says, don't listen to the populist naysayers. The U.S. economy continues to deliver jobs, higher wages, and upward mobility for those who need it most. Really, are you saying that Syrians and these immigrants don't need what we have most? These people right here are what is the backbone of American society. And a lot of Black Americans don't even know their own heritage. A lot, not just low-income Black Americans, but high-class Black Americans, they think that they just arrive into that their mother or their father got them to where they are today, just because the name of their mother or their father is why they are rich and why they're so well known around the world. Oh, yes, I'm high class, I'm a Black, I'm intellectual, I don't need college. I can just rely on my father for the rest of my life, and I am who I am just because of my father. Really? You are who you are just because of your father? Well, where did he come from? And where did his father come from? They were all cotton pickers too. They were all cotton pickers. And where did the fathers of those cotton pickers come from? Come on now, we weren't all Black rich people who came from Europe. And the Black people that did come from Europe and from England and from France when they came to America, guess what most of them were? Military. Government. And even those Black intellectual English ancestors, French ancestors, didn't just arrive by themselves either. They had to be trained in some way. They had to learn the policies of a government in some way. They had to learn from somebody else. They didn't just arrive and were rich by themselves. Christopher Columbus was not rich and arrived by himself. Frederick Douglass was a rich educator and arrived by himself. George Washington Carver wasn't just rich by himself. He was a very intellectual man. Yes, George Washington Carver was very intellectual, but he had to go to school and he had to be trained by somebody else in order to get the qualifications in order to become the inventor and the scientist that he was. George Washington Carver didn't do anything by himself. He had to learn from somebody else. Frederick Douglass, Thurgood Marshall, Maya Angelou. All these well-known Black, even President Barack Obama, he didn't just arrive to Chicago by himself. He didn't do all this by himself. No, he had to learn from somebody else. And when you hear President Obama, he doesn't say, "Oh, I'm who I am because of my father." No, his father was separated from his family when he was a young Black kid. So everything that President Obama had to learn, he had to learn from his mother, and he also had to learn from himself. So no, President Obama just arrived by himself. Even the Kennedys, even Dr. King, even Malcolm X. Dr. King was educated because he educated himself, but at the same time, he had to learn from somebody else. He had to learn from Morehouse. He had professors at Morehouse that taught him what he needed to know. And Dr. King wasn't rich all his life. He was dirt poor when he went to Morehouse. Yeah, he had a father that was also in the ministry, but he wasn't rich all by himself. He had to learn from somebody else. He didn't just do all this by himself. He had to get his intellectual, get his spirituality from somebody else above him so that he could have been the person that he was today. That he could have went to Morehouse College, that he could have went to ministry school. He just didn't travel all around the world by himself. He was part of a group, he was part of a people that got together and made segregation outlawed in the United States. Dr. King just didn't go to President Lyndon B. Johnson and say, "Hey, by myself, I want to stop civil rights hate." No, he didn't. He didn't just do this by himself. And he said, "Yes, I'm a popular Black man, and President Johnson, I'm rich, powerful Black man, and I want to stop segregation." No. Dr. King didn't do that by himself. No. "Oh, I'm popular and I'm rich, and the Black community loves me." No, he had to fight for what he had. His house was bombed plenty of times. He had to carry a gun with him everywhere, and when he slept at night, crosses burning in front of his house. And Dr. King wasn't the only one that was part of the civil rights movement. He's just one of the most notable figures of the civil rights movement. There was Smokey Carmichael. There was former congressman that just passed away, John Lewis. I think, Emmanuel Lewis. He just passed away. There's the top four. There's plenty of civil rights figures out there that are well known during the 60s and 70s that people are still alive know that Dr. King wasn't the top tier, but he's the one that people speak most about. "Oh, Dr. King was the father of the civil rights movement." Yeah. No, he wasn't. Dr. King was not the father of the civil rights movement. There are other people that came into action to support him being a leader, but he wasn't the father of the civil rights movement. He was just the leader of the SCLC and the Poor People's Campaign, yes, but he wasn't the father of the civil rights movement. There were other people before him. And yes, there were other people before Rosa Parks. Everybody knows that she wasn't the only one. to make a stand on public buses. Rosa Parks was not the first Black person to do a boycott against buses. She wasn't the first, but she was the most notable person. And it doesn't have to do anything with the color of her skin, or her education, or her culture, or her class, or how much money he had. It's just people continue to talk about it. And now she's made a notable figure in the civil rights movement. But she was not the first. She probably was the first person to have the NAACP support her in her efforts. But she wasn't the first. She probably had the most support, but she wasn't the first. So Dr. King, yeah, Dr. King is a great leader in the civil rights movement, but he was not the father of the civil rights movement. Dr. King is just one figure in the civil rights movement, but he was one figure of a whole team of 4 men, the awesome 4, the fabulous 4 figures of the civil rights movement. Let me Google it right now. I'm gonna Google it right now. Stay with me. I think it's the fabulous 4 figures of the civil rights movement. So it was Dr. King. Let me see, who else was on right here? Okay. It was a team of 4 figures in Dr. King. Then there was Malcolm X. And then there was, let me see who else, Homer Plessy versus Ferguson. And then there was Ruby Bridges. Ruby Bridges. People don't talk a lot about, people talk more about Dr. King than Ruby Bridges. People talk more about Dr. King than Ruby Bridges, but without Ruby Bridges, there would have been no civil rights movement. Without Ruby Bridges, there would not have been any civil rights movement. Yeah. Without Ruby Bridges, there would have not been a civil rights movement. Because if you're talking about civil rights, the very first thing when you're talking about civil rights, you're talking about, number 1, education. And really when they want to segregate people, they usually stop them from going to school. Anything with segregation, you're stopping them from learning, from thinking. Most of the time, segregation, usually 50% of anything having to do with segregation, predominantly 50% of all the time, it has to do with, number 1, education. Education. Anything with civil rights, anything with segregation, anything with immigration, number 1. Education, number 2. Housing. Housing. Number 1, education. Number 2, housing. I mean, those top right there, especially with segregation. I want to go to school and educate my kids to grow up in society and get better jobs, a better quality of life, and housing. We want to live in a better neighborhood. We want to be safe. Safety right there. Housing. Safety. We don't want you in our neighborhood. Well, I need a safe place for my kids to live. I'm sorry, but this is the way things are. So we're going to listen to an expert here. Excerpt from Dr. King's The 3 Evils of Society on YouTube. I'm gonna put the link right here. I just want you guys to listen. Go ahead and link the link. Hopefully, link the same link right here. It's called. I just want to listen to about 30 seconds of it here. I'll link this right here. The link to this, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and listen to about maybe 5-10 minutes of it. It's about 11 o'clock lunchtime, and I'm probably going to keep me at about 5 minutes, but I just want you guys to go ahead and listen to this. It's called Dr. King's The Three Evils of Society. This is from the 1950s, 1960s speech from Dr. King, okay? So listen to this for me about 10, 15 minutes, okay? It's from Dr. King, okay? It's called The Three Evils of Society.
That something new is taking place on the American political horizon. We have come here from the dusty plantations of the Deep South and the depressing ghettos of the North. We have come from the great universities and the flourishing suburbs. We have come from Appalachian poverty and from conscience-stricken wealth. But we have come. And we have come here because we share a common concern for the moral health of our nation. We have come because our eyes have seen through the superficial glory and glitter of our society and observed the coming of judgment. Like the prophet of old, we have read the handwriting on the wall. We have seen our nation weighed in the balance of history and found wanting. We have come because we see this as a dark hour in the affairs of men. For most of us, this is a new moon. We are traditionally the idealists. We are the marchers from Mississippi and Selma and Washington, who staked our lives on the American dream during the first half of this decade. Many assembled here campaigned assiduously for Lyndon Johnson in 1964 because we could not stand idly by and watch our nation contaminated by the 18th century policies of Goldwaterism. We were the hardcore activists who were willing to believe that Southerners could be reconstructed in the constitutional image. We were the dreamers of a dream, that dark yesterdays of man's inhumanity to man would soon be transformed into bright tomorrows of justice. Now it is hard to escape the disillusionment of betrayal. Our hopes have been blasted and our dreams have been shattered. The promise of a great society was shipwrecked off the coast of Asia on the dreadful peninsula of Vietnam. The poor black and white, are still perishing on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. What happens to a dream deferred? It leads to bewildering frustration and corroding bitterness. I came to see this in a personal experience here in Chicago last summer. And all the speaking that I have done in the United States before varied audiences, including some hostile whites, the only time that I have ever been booed was one night in our regular weekly mass meeting by some angry young men of our movement. I went home that night with an ugly feeling. Selfishly, I thought of my sufferings and sacrifices over the last 12 years. Why would they boo one so close to them? But as I lay awake thinking, I finally came to myself, and I could not for the life of me have less than patience and understanding for those young men. For 12 years, I and others like me have held out radiant promises of progress. I had preached to them about my dream. I had lectured to them about the not too distant day when they would have freedom all here and now. I had urged them to have faith in America and in white society. Their hopes had soared. They were now booing me because they felt that we were unable to deliver on our promises. They were booing because we had urged them to have faith in people who had too often proved to be unfaithful. They were now hostile because they were watching the dream that they had so readily accepted turn into a frustrating nightmare. This situation is all the more ominous in view of the rising expectations of men the world over. The deep rumblings that we hear today, the rumbling of discontent, is the thunder of disinherited masses rising from dungeons of oppression to the bright hills of freedom. All over the world, like a fever, freedom is spreading in the widest liberation movement in history. The great masses of people are determined to end the exploitation of their races and lands. And in one majestic chorus, they are singing in the words of our freedom song, "Ain't gonna let nobody turn us around."
Yeah, that's Dr. King, Dr. Martin Luther King. That was in 1955, 1956, and it still applies to what's going on, what's being done today. It still applies. It's just tell people that we need to make a change. What's going on? That we had dreams in the past. He wasn't just talking about my dream. I have a dream. No, Dr. King wasn't just saying I have a dream for myself. No, he was talking about his whole community has always had the same dream. He wasn't just talking, I have a dream. He was speaking on behalf of the whole African American community as a whole, that we have always had the same dream. Everybody. I, you, me, them, everybody. White, Black, Hispanic, Asian, Mexican, Arab, for people all around the world have the same dream, the same focus. Freedom and equality for everybody. Our children have the same dream. Freedom and equality. And he's pretty much saying that this dream of peace, this dream of freedom is turning into a nightmare. And it's turning into an evil that society can't even deal with. Society can't deal with racism, with crosses burning in our front yard. That just didn't happen to Black people. Crosses weren't being burned in front of front yards and backyards of Black people. Crosses were being burned in front of people that supported Black people and supported immigrants and supported Jews, supported Japanese Americans, as well as whatever the political climate was going on in the 1950s, the 60s, and 70s, and still today, they're still burning crosses in front of people's front yards. Sometimes they post it on the news, sometimes they don't. They're still doing that today. But you don't hear it on the Today Show. You don't hear it on the 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock news. This was during the 50s, during the 1950s. It's 11:10 right now. This was being done. He did this speech in the 1950s. Well, that was like 80 years ago. It wasn't 50 years ago, that was 80 years ago. Almost 100 years ago. This was 80 years ago. Dr. King gave this speech. 80 years ago. 80 years ago. 80. 80. Almost 50 years ago, no. Dr. King was alive 80 years ago, almost 100 years ago. People think, oh, just because he's on TV, that means he's still alive and present. No. It was recorded on TV for people to actually know that it existed. Because if we don't record things, we won't know that they existed. Slavery was almost, slavery was 1920. That's almost 1,000 years ago. Slavery, 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago, slavery was still being done. Slavery, what was it? 1900s, 1910s, 1920s? That's almost, that's 1,000 years ago. 1,000. Slavery in the United States was over 1,000 years ago. 1,000. 1,000 years ago. Dr. King gave this speech in the 1950s and 1960s. That was 80 years ago. But people, they don't talk about it. They think, oh, just because it was on TV, just because it was recorded on a camera, it's new to society. No, it's not new. Nothing's new. Nothing is new. History is just a repeat of itself. But we have the technology to actually record history. Almost 100 years ago, Dr. King lived. 100. That's a century. And this is a millennial. And just because he died, he no longer exists. But we have him on TV, so that must mean he's still alive. Yeah. Almost 100 years ago in U.S. society, and there's still segregation. The evils of society: poverty, war, and crime. That's what he talked about in this speech. He taught the 3 evils of society, which was poverty, war, and crime. That's what the 3 evils of society. Dr. King lived almost 100 years ago, and that 1950 speech still applies today. And not all of a sudden we think just because we're in a new millennial, we have iPods and Apples and technology or whatever is new, and oh, we're so upgraded with society. We don't have to go back to the old times, and we could just make our own rules. We can do what we want to do because we got the money. We got our own society. We got our own kids. And it's no longer black and white. It's money or no money. And we can do whatever we want because we are our own society. No, we are not our own society. And we as Americans have never made it. We as Americans have never made anything. Yeah, you can keep America great. Yeah, let's keep America great. Let's keep it back to the 1,000 years ago during slavery, when not only blacks were cotton picking, but Mexicans were cotton picking, Cubans were cotton picking, Irishmen were cotton picking, Italian men were cotton picking. But they don't talk about it. They don't talk about Irish immigrants picking cotton. But you see the pictures if you Google them. Because if you were poor, you were poor. You had to do what you had to do to survive. They just mentioned that a lot of black people cotton picked. Yeah, black people cotton picked, but they weren't the only slaves. Black people were not the only slaves, but we were a majority of slaves. We weren't the only slaves in the United States. And yeah, there were black masters too, black slave masters, but they don't talk about it like that. But if you see the pictures, you know that there were black people that owned their own plantations and had their own black slaves. Yeah, black people owned cotton plantations. Yes, they did. Black people owned the plantations, and black people had other black people serving them on those plantations. But history these politicians, they don't talk about it. I said that in another one of my YouTube videos. You're my black master and I'm your black slave. We're the same skin tone, the same color, but I have to serve you because you are my owner. But we came from the same mother. We came from the same background. Yeah, but just because you're a little lighter skinned than me, the master gave you ownership of the plantation. Or just because you know a little bit more than me, or just because you leveled up or did something, the master gave you ownership of the plantation. Now I got to answer to you. Yeah, that's how it works. That was done in 1920s in slavery. Yeah, black people owned plantations. Yes, they did. But you don't hear that in Hollywood. You don't see Hollywood when we talk about black plantation owners. But if you go to New Orleans, Louisiana, and Georgia, some parts of Texas, some parts of Alabama, and California, you'll know that there were black plantation owners. And Oklahoma and Tennessee, yes, black people own their own plantations. And North Carolina and South Carolina. Yeah, black people owned slaves. And yes, black people were plantation owners, but Hollywood doesn't talk about it. And politicians don't talk about it. Yeah, black people had control over their own product. And those upper class black people made lower class black people their slaves. Because they want things to stay the way they are. You either a house nigger or you a field nigger, and it's always been that way. Excuse my French, excuse me. But it's always been that way. From 1,000 years ago up until now, in a new millennium, 2020, you're the house nigger or you're a field nigger. It's always been that way, and nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. You think you're a little bit better than me? Oh, really? Let me put you back to where you came from. Oh, you're a prostitute. Really? Am I a prostitute? Really? Where you come from? Who you are? I'm not a prostitute. I'm either in the house or on the inside or outside, one or the other. You either a prostitute outside in the field or you a prostitute inside in the house. One or the other. You can't have both ways. You work for the field master or you working for the house master. One are the ways. You can't have both and eat it too. It's always been that way. Excuse me. Excuse my French. But it has always been that way. And nigger wasn't even the worst word that we used to call each other. Nigger was not the worst word that we used to call each other. It's not the worst word. There are plenty of other words that are more derogatory than that word. But if you hear somebody else say it, yeah, it is derogatory. But that is not the worst word that we used to call each other either. That is not the worst of the worst. Colored, I think, is a little bit worse than that. But there are other words that are worse than that. People don't talk about it nowadays. They use that word as the worst, but it's not. There are plenty of lower terms that they used to call low-income black people, colored people back in the old days. And so you think that you're having this little black child into your school and you don't want them to integrate with the other students? Or you have this immigrant from Syria and from Mexico and from Muslim countries and you don't want them into our country, into our borders? Even in USA Today, even in the Post, you know, it continues, right? Even in the Wall Street Journal, I mean, there's articles all over. I mean, there's articles all over talking about the American dream, and, you know, I mean, like, okay, yeah, wages are going a little bit higher, but that doesn't mean that the economy is changing. It goes, oh, the economy is growing. Better pay for all workers. Right here in the Wall Street Journal, Sunday's edition, Sunday, February the 1st to the 2nd. The constant message that American capitalism is broken is deeply damaging. Yeah, capitalism was not always about white Americans. Capitalism is a combination of low class and high class working together to increase profits for our economy. It goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. I really love reading the Wall Street Journal. I love the Wall Street Journal because it goes into even more detail. And just one edition of the Wall Street Journal, you can get caught in a whole month. I love the Wall Street Journal. It's just good editorial features. Good. And then the Wall Street Sunday edition, the magazine, I love that too. The New York Times Sunday magazine, I love that too. And then the USA Today. USA Today is great. Even talking about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle on the Wall Street Journal, talking about tax columns advice for Harry and Meghan, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. You know, I mean, it goes on and on. USA Today. Thank you to my one listener for listening to me. I appreciate it. Talk about, oh, we're not ready for a female president. I mean, it goes on and on today. On and on in the paper, all over. Woman who says, I mean, God, it goes on, and it really hasn't changed. The newspaper is the same thing over and over again, even in the Post. Same thing over and over. Politics, caucuses, all that stuff. But it's really the same thing. Prejudice, you know, figuring out where you're gonna go, who you're gonna vote for, what your neighborhood's gonna vote for. It's the same thing. The paper's the same thing every single day. Talk about gun laws. Yeah, gun laws are important. Yeah. Gun rights, sanctuaries, threaten law and order. So you rather talk about gun rights rather than rights for education and equal access for all Americans. Yeah, this is the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment is very important, but you also got to instill free education and free access to education for all Americans rather than the right to bear arms. So what's more important, the right to bear arms or the right to free education, free access to education? Education or guns? What is more important? And you know what Trump is going to talk about? Guns. Because he needs that money. He needs that NRA money. Yeah, it's very important. And in 1954, Linda Brown versus the Board of Education, United States Supreme Court case was very important. Not just for the young Black student, Linda Brown herself, but for our economy and our nation as a whole. I can't believe that it took up until the 1950s for actually the United States as a country and as an entity to pass a law that granted people free access to education. Not a free right to education, but free access. Because education is not a right. Education is it's a human dignity. Education is not free. Yeah, it should be free, but it's not a right. It's a liberty that we take for granted. I have the right to education. Yes, I have the right to education, but you also have the right to breathe. You also have the right to live in a free society. It's a liberty that we take for granted. Some people say, oh, I have the right to be educated. Oh, I have the right to be in this school. I have the right to do what I want to do. I have the right to open these doors and let these teachers give me my degree. You don't have a right to anything, honey. Education is a liberty and it's a freedom. And if you don't take advantage of it, oh, well, go do something else. You have the freedom to equality and happiness. Yes, everybody has the freedom to equality and happiness, yes. But if you don't take advantage of it, then it's going to take advantage of you. You don't have the right to anything. You have the freedom to choose what you want to do with that right, because it's guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution. You have the freedom to choose what you want to do with that right, but everybody doesn't have the same rights. Because if everybody had the same rights, then there would be no jail. There would be no differentiation of class. There would be nothing to do with skin color, nothing to do with class or money or whatever. The U.S. Constitution guarantees equal access to those rights, but people, they take those rights for granted every single day. And you think, oh, police brutality is taking away my rights. I'm sure something else led up to that police brutality before you got taken advantage of by a criminal system in progress. And yes, there have been young Black Americans that have been taken advantage of by police brutality. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they were at the wrong place at the wrong time. It's just that there were, dirty cops in the system that thought that these people don't have rights. These people think that they're above the law. So we're gonna take force against these people, whether they're Black, Mexican, Arab. These people are all terrorists. These people are all low income. These people are all thieves. I don't care. I gotta protect my family. I gotta do what's best for my family and my community. So I'm gonna kill this person. I'm gonna kill this boy. I'm gonna kill this girl. And therefore I protect my community and I protect my country. And I take advantage of my right to protect and defend my country. See how that works? See how that works? I take advantage of my right to protect. I take advantage of it. So the cop is taking advantage of his right. What about the Black person? Are they taking advantage of their right too? No, because they don't have no arms to bear. They're helpless. They're victimless. The cop is taking advantage of his right, and the Black person has no rights. The young Black kid doesn't have any rights. So what happens? The Black kid dies under police brutality, and the family, therefore, begins to claim their rights against police brutality. The Black family then begins to defend their rights after the son dies under police brutality. Then the Black family does something about it. After their son dies. It's sad how that works, that someone can take advantage of their rights before somebody else does. It's funny how the system works. It's funny how that works. Cops have more rights than individual citizens. But it's the same constitution, it's the same country, it's the same borders, we live in the same dirt, and we probably even live in the same community. How do cops have more rights than individual citizens? Because those cops know the law and how the law works for them. Citizens, they sometimes are very naive. They only know what TV tells them and they only know what social media tells them. They don't know the law. And the people that do know the law are most of the time the people that are coming out from the system and that have been chained up and enslaved by the law to actually have some time to sit down for themselves and to analyze the law once they are enslaved by the law. So I'm enslaved by the law, therefore I have all this time on my hands to actually sit down and read in prison and analyze the law. When I could have had this all done 50, 30 years ago on the streets. But it took me going to prison to actually figure out how my life would change. I actually had to go to prison to sit down and learn how to read a book. That's funny how that works. Because usually that's the cycle what people want you to do. They want you enslaved so you can't protect yourself or your family. They want you enslaved by yourself so that the community at home can do nothing about it and don't know what's going on. But you are in prison and you have all this knowledge, but you're enslaved in the system. How does a leader have more knowledge of his community while he's enslaved in prison than when he's out of the system? How does that work? You tell me. How does a leader actually come to be knowledgeable about his country, his community as a whole when he is therefore enslaved? How does it take becoming a slave to actually figure out where you came from? Well, I know more about my community on the streets than I do know in the jail. There's more about my community when I walk on the streets every single day, when I talk to them, when I read the Constitution, when I go to service on Sunday. When I listen to the pastor, I can learn more about my community and more about my nation, my country as a whole, just walking down the street, walking around in the mall, going to school in my neighborhood rather than sitting 20, 30, 50 years in jail just because I got into a conflict with somebody. I'm not saying that murder should be approved. I'm not saying that crime or theft should be excused. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying some of these petty theft criminals have to go to jail and get their lives together, spend 50 years in jail, just for them to sit down and think, what have I done to myself and my community? So you do more segregation in jail than you do outside on the streets. That's how that works. We're gonna send them to jail, we're gonna send them to the other side of town. We're gonna get them out of the community so the community may not know what's really going on. How did it take Dr. King going to jail to figure out what was going on? How did it take Nelson Mandela to go to jail to figure out what was going on? How did it take Malcolm X to go to jail to figure out what was really going on with this community, with their community? Nelson Mandela spent how many years in jail, in prison? And when he came out, that all of a sudden he became president just because he spent 50 years in jail? Yes, he was escaping his political climate. Yes, he was escaping apartheid. Yeah. But I'm sure he knew more about his community before he even went to prison. But the community and the political climate and politicians had to do something a little bit about this person. We got to put them away for a little bit so that they won't rise up. Let's put them away. Let's enslave them so that they won't rise up and build up their community as a whole. Let's enslave this person for 60, 70 years, and then when they come out, then the community can rise up. Are you serious? It took Nelson Mandela 50 years in prison for the country of South Africa to rise up against English apartheid? It took Nelson Mandela 30, 20, whatever, how many years in prison for him to rise up as president of this country? Get out of here. The story has been told wrong. Time and time again. That's not how our people have worked. We haven't been enslaved to rise up and become leaders. We weren't enslaved to become leaders. We were already leaders even before we became enslaved. People, they don't think like that. They don't think how the structure works. They don't think how this time works. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go to jail, and then when I get out of jail, I'm gonna be boss up. People are gonna know me in the streets. I'm gonna have street cred just because I went to jail. You think about that all the time. I have street cred just because I went to jail. That's not how it works, honey. That means you wasted a lot of your life away by being enslaved to the system. You wasted your life away. But you could have done more with your life and build up your community and your family. But you had to be enslaved and waste your life. Get on whatever schedule they wanted you to be on. Eat whatever food they wanted you to eat. Have as much sunlight as they wanted you to have sunlight. Wear whatever clothes they wanted you to wear. Be around people they wanted you to be around with. But people, they don't think that's how the system works. For us as a people to become enslaved, to get our freedom, that's not how it works. The story's been told wrong time and time again. If we really knew who we were, then we were kings and queens, and before we came across these American shores, we would rise up a little bit more. But African history, they don't talk about that. But they always Black History Month. I have 28, 29 days to remember all these leaders and to celebrate civil rights for all. Yeah, it's Black History Month. It's Black History Month. It's not Black American History Month. It's Black History Month. There were Moors, there were Egyptians, there were Eritreans, there were Nigerians, there were Congolese, there were Japanese, there were Australians, there were plenty of Europeans that came to the shores that were of Black descent, Black African descent, darker skin tone than their upper echelon European people. There were many of the Native Americans that originated in the United States. Just look at their pictures of Native Americans, and you know that they were the same skin tone as we African Americans are today. Many meaning Native Americans are the same skin tone. The same skin tone. And they're Native Americans. Same skin tone. Same skin tone. Same skin tone. And yeah, I'm talking, yeah. It's good, yeah. It's good to celebrate Black History Month. I should be a little bit more detailed, but immigration is part of the United States. It's part of our Constitution. Yes, it is. Because we would be nothing without immigrants. Not just white-skinned immigrants, but dark-skinned immigrants too. And a lot of this Trump administration policy right here, he's mostly not talking about European immigrants. He's mostly talking about dark-skinned tone immigrants from countries like Eritrea, where there are beautiful, dark-skinned, beautiful women and men, very highly educated. But they want to come into America to bring their education and their skills and their attributes to our country, which is lacking those skills. I'm sure the country of America is lacking, is such in a need for doctors and physicians. There's a high demand for doctors and physicians and medical staff. There is such a high demand for doctors in this country. It is ridiculous. It is such ridiculous, the demand for doctors in this country right now. It is ridiculous. But they're getting all the doctors and all the physicians from other countries like India, from Europe. But people from Africa that have those same skill sets, that have those same education, the same school, they want to come to our borders and fill that need and fill that lack of doctors. Doctors, the US is in such a high demand for doctors, it is ridiculous. There's an excess of nurses and there's such a need for doctors. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous how many doctors this country needs. It is ridiculous. It is such ridiculous. The shortage of doctors in America. It is ridiculous. But they're talking about, okay, STEM research, yes, let's increase science and technology. That's great, but we need our basic needs. We need doctors. We need physicians. We need nurses. We need our health system to change. We need people to analyze what's going on in the US health system because the baby boomer generation is dying off. The baby boomers are dying off. Social Security needs to be changed, and there needs to be people from other countries to come in and fix our system, to help fix our system before our grandparents die off and nobody does anything about it. The US is in such a demand and need for doctors. It is so ridiculous. It is so ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Then you can have a degree in science and technology and get a higher paying job than a medical doctor, a medical physician who can live off his whole life and take care of his family and the community and the state as a whole, rather than your little bitty science and technology degree. Yeah, you can become a millionaire with a science and technology degree. That's great, but a doctor can do more with his degree, not just in the United States, but all around the world. And he can travel to different parts all around the world. These immigrants don't just have to come to the United States. They go back to their country and help out their country. They come back and forth to the United States, back and forth to the United States, back and forth. Because people around the world need their skills. This is a global skill set. Doctors, nurses, and teachers. Oh my God, the shortage of teachers is ridiculous. The United States need for teachers is ridiculous. We need teachers. It is ridiculous how much of a need, how much of a shortage there is because we don't pay our teachers well. We don't pay our teachers well at all. These immigrants that come to our nation, especially the African, are very highly educated and very intellectual. A lot of these African immigrants and people from the Middle East, they already have PhDs. Already are qualified in their own home country. PhD. I'm a PhD from my country of Egypt. I have publications posted in the Harvard Medical Review and publications all around the world as well as the United States. But you don't want me into your country because you're borrowing my people, because you don't like my people. But your country needs me and the skill sets that I have. But you don't want me or my people into your country. And that's what, you know, who did that during the 1920s and the 1930s? A lot of leaders did that in the World War I and World War II. Not just Hitler, but Mussolini and the Emperor of Japan and Russia, Stalin. Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini. Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini. They did that. They barred immigrants and people out of their country what is just what their country needed during war-torn times. Why are you going to kick out doctors and teachers and educators out of their country when that's what your country needs the most in order to get through this war? You know what those doctors and those nurses and those educators are going to do? They're going to go to another country to get freedom and the liberties that their own native country has taken them advantage from. And they're going to do so much more in another country than their own country can do for them. That's why Albert Einstein was not American. Albert Einstein was leaving Germany and Russia during World War I and World War II. And without Albert Einstein, where would America be today? Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein. Without Albert Einstein, where would the United States be where it is today? Albert Einstein, the theory of relativity. Albert Einstein was an immigrant. He was a Jewish immigrant. Albert Einstein was Jewish. He was Jewish. He was a Jewish man who had to leave his country, I think it was in Germany, or what was going on, whatever, during the Holocaust, and come to the United States, not only for freedom, but to use his same skill sets and tell the United States what was going on and the scientific discoveries that his own country was trying to keep him back from telling the people about. It's very simple. But people don't talk about the civil rights movement and Albert Einstein. They think it's just all about Black Americans. No, the civil rights movement was more about immigrants and the Poor People's Campaign and uplifting our community as a whole with everybody around involved. The civil rights movement had to deal with Mexican Americans. It had to deal with very poor, low-income people from New York and the North who had problems to accessing equal housing and good housing. The civil rights movement had to do with a lot of Jewish people who are very rich and highly educated, but they didn't receive the same equal opportunity access to their other white European counterparts. The civil rights movement had to deal with the country as a whole. Right here, where would the United States be without this man right here? Right here in Syracuse, New York, people, they don't like Jewish people. It's hard to do with that. How am I in here in upstate New York and people have a problem with the Jewish faith? In upstate New York, New York State, which is, the Jewish faith is really the foundation of Christianity. excuse me, that might offend some people, but really, it might, yes, it's going to offend some people. The Jewish faith is the foundation of Christianity. Without the Jewish faith, there would be no Christianity. That's going to offend some people, but that's the truth. That's going to offend some people, but that's the truth. Without the Jewish faith, there would be no Christianity. So you're not hating a Jewish person, you're hating yourself for being a part of them. People think, oh, the Holocaust did exist. Oh, 9/11 did exist because I was not there. Are you stupid? Are you drunk? Did you see the pictures? Did you see what happened on television? Just because you weren't born during 9/11, just because you weren't born during Vietnam, does that mean that it does not exist? Just because your family didn't come from Mexico, just because your family didn't come from Syria, or from Africa, or from the Middle East, does that mean that these people do not exist? These people exist. These people are here for a reason. So if you go to the doctor and there's no doctor around, what are you going to do? When you go to the dentist, where's your dentist from? When you go to the clinic to get a shot, to get a medication, where's your nurse from? Where's your doctor from? Where's your pharmacist from? Where's the person that gives you blood? Where are they from? Oh, we're not going to talk about immigration policy then. Oh, I want my medicine. Oh, I want my medical help. Yeah, you can get your medical help. But first, address me as a person, as an individual. Address me as my title. I am your doctor. Yes, I am your doctor. And you will address me as that and nothing more and nothing less. I am my doctor and I am your doctor and you have to follow my instructions or else you will not live. That's the way it is. Really? Yes. I'm your doctor and I'm in control of your health. And because I have been educated in this field, I know what's best for you, as well as for the other people who are going through your same condition. Other people in my home country have gone through what you've gone through. And other people down in your same neighborhood are going through what you're going through. But you're not going to take in my advice because you don't like me or my last name or where I'm from. But your neighbor is going through the same thing that you're going through. And he saw me a couple of days ago. But you woke up to me because you don't like my last name. But you need my help because I'm your doctor. Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I don't want to see that black man. I don't want to see that black female doctor. I don't want to see that Jewish doctor. But what are you going to do when you're in the emergency room at your very last wits? At the very last breath of your life, what are you going to do? Are you going to look at the color of the skin of your doctor? Or are you going to ask for help? Yes, doctor, I need your help. Yes, you are a doctor, and I respect that. Yes, I am a medical physician, and I respect your qualifications and your skill set, so please help me and stop me from dying. Oh, okay, so that's where we stop immigration policy there. Okay. If we stop people from this like coming into our country, we would not have America as it is today. And these young kids, these new millennials, they're so caught up in what's on TV and what's new, what's happening, that they forget where they come from and they forget the past. They think, oh, just because I saw it on TV, I saw it on the internet. Oh, it was just a couple of years ago. Oh yeah, it's on YouTube. That means it's just only 10 years ago. Oh, it's fine, it's old. No, it's not old. It's 1,000 years ago. It's 100 years ago. And if it happened 100 years ago, that means it's still going to happen today. History always repeats itself. History always repeats itself. No matter who you are, if you're royal or not, if you're Prince Harry, Prince William, the Battle of Sussex, the Battle of Hastings, whatever it is, wherever war you are in the world, whether there is a draft or whether there's not a draft, whether we have a female president or a male president, or we have a woman prime minister of England or not a woman prime minister or a male prime minister of England, History always repeats itself. And we do need to change immigration policy. We do. But Trump, he doesn't address it. He does not address it at all. He thinks that just because these people are all terrorists, and wherever they come from, they're all terrorists. But if a Syrian doctor applies for a visa here in this country, you're going to bar that Syrian doctor from coming to our shores and providing the services that we as a community of 100,000 people need the assistance of this Syrian doctor who has all the skill sets and all the qualifications and has published research all around the world, but you will not let this Syrian doctor into our shores because he's from the country of Syria. And because he's a Black man. But he's educated and he has published research and he has proven research and proven medical skills as well. We need him as a group of 100,000 people. We support and we need this Syrian doctor to be in our country. We will fly him and his whole entire family to America just to use his skill sets. We need this Syrian doctor. But the president doesn't want this Syrian doctor into the United States borders because he hates Syrians. And he has put policies into place to bar these immigrant populations from being on our shores, which we so badly need. It's not just him as a president, as a commander-in-chief. It's been done time and time and time and time again before. We not only bar these people from being in our country, but at the same time, the same people that are in our country that come from them, we put them into internment and concentration camps. But I need a Japanese doctor to heal my sick child. I need this Japanese doctor to make medicine to help heal my sick child from pneumonia. But the Japanese doctor is in a concentration camp in another state. Can you bring the Japanese doctor out of the concentration camp and help take care of me and my children? No. No. We're not going to bring that Japanese doctor out of the concentration camp. He's going to stay in the concentration camp, him and his whole family and his whole community, until they learn the lesson about U.S. policy. Until they learn the lesson, they're going to stay in that hole. But my family, we need their help. My family, my child is dying. My child is dying from pneumonia. My child is dying from rabies. We need their help. Us white, middle-class Americans, we need the help from these people. No, we're going to put them in a concentration camp until they learn their lesson. And when they die in that concentration camp, then somebody else from your community will grow older and be educated, and then that person from your community can take care of your child. I can't wait 21 years for somebody to take care of my child who is dying right now. I can't wait 21 years. I need somebody right here and right now. But that's not how it works. Politicians, they don't think like that. They don't think like that. And a lot of Arabs are very highly educated. A lot of Muslims are very highly educated and very highly intellectual. A lot of Muslims. Not just from Middle East, but from Africa. Muslims, Black doctors, Muslims, white doctors. They have their own film industry. They have their own medical field. A lot of Indian doctors. But we need their skill sets. We need the skill sets that they have to pour into our country. But we're not going to allow them into our country because they're from the Middle East. They're from Turkestan, they're from Iran, they're from Iraq. But the US has a high percentage need of doctors. It's ridiculous. But you don't see that on the news. Shortage of doctors, shortage of teachers. All you see is strikes. All you see is what not the media, is what the US administration wants you to see. Oh, what's bad news is bad news for a reason, because people need to know what's going on. If news is not bad, then people won't change. News can't be good all the time. News has to be bad for people to make a difference, do something about it. Bad news is bad news for a reason, so people can actually figure out what's going on and do something, put something into action to take care of it. We need bad news as well as good news. You can't have good news all the time, because what's that called? It's called propaganda. Good news all the time is called propaganda. So that the political administration will only let the people see what they want them to see and be delusional to what's going on in the world. Yeah, there's a global climate crisis. Yes, there's a global climate crisis for a reason, but you don't see it. I see right here. Right here, Brazil's unusual bid to curb deforestation. Oh, that's not being talked about. The climate crisis in February. It's called propaganda for a reason, and it's not old and it's not new. It happens every single day. We need good news and we need bad news for people to make a change, to protect themselves and their families, and also to bring in the resources and the needs that we as a country of the United States, as a union, need. Not just from the North and the South, but we as a country, we need each other. We need other people to pour into ourselves. Trump is not just Trump for a reason. Trump has a big family. Trump comes from a very big family. It's not just the Trump family. It's the Trump-Hines family. It's the Trump-Hines fortune. It's not just the Trump family, the Trump fortune. It's the Trump-Hines fortune. He doesn't talk about his Hines family a lot. No, he doesn't. You think Trump, you think real estate and business. It's Trump-Hines dynasty. It's food, it's manufacturing, it's goods. I think his mother or his grandmother's a Heinz. Heinz ketchup. That's Trump's family, but he doesn't talk about it. Ketchup. Where would the United States be without ketchup? Heinz ketchup manufacturers. But he doesn't talk about the Heinz family. Yeah, it's the Trump's Heinz family. But he doesn't talk about it. He doesn't address it a lot. He thinks, oh, I'm a self-made billionaire. I'm right by myself. My father gave me a little money. Okay, that's good. And then because of my father's contribution, I then became a billionaire. It wasn't just his father. It was his whole family as a whole. He's not self-made, and he's not self-made because of his father. He's self-made because of his family dynasty. Neither is Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg didn't make Facebook by himself. He made Facebook with a group of his buddies from the same school. He didn't just make Facebook by himself. He may have developed the ideal and got together with a group of his buddies to get the ideal together, but he just didn't develop it by himself. He had a group of people around him to support him in his needs to get his product together. Mark Zuckerberg is not a self-made billionaire. There are still his buddies from Harvard and from MIT that are still suing him for ownership of the company today. They're still suing him. Mark Zuckerberg, billionaire. And Bill Gates. Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft, and Steve Jobs, founder of Apple. Steve Jobs didn't make Apple by himself. They needed help. They needed help from their own counterparts to help them get this product together so we can sell it to other people and other countries to increase the global economy as a whole. Apple wasn't invented by itself. Microsoft wasn't invented by one person. There was a group of people that contributed and made their product what it is today. Yeah, iPhone. It was one man that invented iPhone? No, it was not one man that invented it. He was notable for it. But there was a group of people that came behind and they developed the idea behind this Apple product. Because now Steve Jobs may be the head of the product, but there's a whole group of people behind them that have shares in that stock and shares in the business that are probably even unheard of. But you know what? They got the same money as Steve Jobs and his family. They got the same share of stock and they're still billionaires. And you know what? They don't want to be heard of. They don't want to be talked about because they want to let it be known that they contribute to this product. So you know what? Every single day, every single month, they'll get the check for the contributions. And at the same time, they don't want people to know. Because sometimes that's how rich people are. You have this product and it changes the world. And yeah, we help change the world. But we're going to let this man be notable about it above everybody else. Yeah, this man helped change the world, but we contributed to it. So he could take ownership, but every single month, every single day, we still get a paycheck of $100 billion. And he has a responsibility of telling the world about this product that we helped him invent. So he shows responsibility, but we backed him up. And we don't have any more responsibility in the product, but at the same time, we don't work no more, but at the same time, we still get our checks every single day and every single month. We don't have to work no more for the rest of life, but he does. See how that works? You work, you get the title, you get the ownership. We don't work, we still get the paycheck, and we still have the same ownership. See how that works? Apple. But you know what? The U.S. Political administration right now in the office, they don't think like that. They think bar all the people from this country, bar Black students from our neighborhood, prevent them from getting access to our schools. We don't want their resources, and they'll never be educated. Help them educated at home. Help them learn what school's about at home. Education begins at the home. Yeah, education begins at the home. But you need to step outside your box and figure out what's going on in the world at the same time. People, they don't think like that. And even here from a Howard University speech by President Lyndon B. Johnson in 1965 is posted on the Howard University website. Howard University, it says, men and women of all races are born with the same range of abilities. Ability is not just product of birth, it is product of 100 unseen forces playing upon one little infant child, which eventually and finally becomes a man. But people, they don't think like that. You think one person, one white male, one Black male, one person as a whole invented this product. This one person has a sole ability to do what his whole community cannot. This one person is solely responsible for the movement. And we will give all our money and all our prayers to this one person. And it's illegal for people to come in here and try to replace that one person. It's illegal. And not only will we bar them from doing what they want to do and challenging that person's authority, but we will kill them and their families as well from challenging the person's authority, which we highly hold in esteem. So what are you saying? You're going to, Black students are going to challenge the authority of the white educational system? Yeah. Because a Black child sometimes is more highly educated than a white child. Because they have to endure, they do so much little, they do so much more with so much little than upper class echelon white students do. Or immigrant students from Mexico, from Saudi Arabia, from Iran, from Iraq, from the Middle East, from Africa, do so much more with a little bit than we as Americans, as Black Americans, as white Americans, as Mexican, Latino Americans do. They do more with a little bit of time than we can do with our lifetime. Immigrants. And yeah, I mean, I still have a lot to learn. I don't know it all. I don't know it all. I don't. I don't know it all. I still have a very lot to learn about this policy and about immigrant policies and how it works as a whole. I still have a lot to learn. A lot to learn. I want a little cup of coffee as well. I still have a lot to learn. I still have a lot to learn. Yeah. It's about an hour, an hour and 45 minutes. Yeah. I still have a very lot to learn about immigrant, about what money is. I still don't know anything about money. And now in my mid-30s, I still have a lot to learn about how money works. Yes, after burying my mother's ashes, wherever she may be. Yes, my mentor died and was laid to rest wherever she may be. Her soul in heaven or whatever, wherever she may be. Sometimes I see my reflection, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I meet rich people who can help me out, sometimes I don't. I'm still very dumb to how money works. Yes, I'm very dumb and very retarded. But sometimes when you think about people like this that existed, it's not about money. People like this, like Albert Einstein, George Washington Carver, it's not about money at all. It's not about how much money they made and that they were millionaires. This person right here has nothing to do about money. He has to do about technology and about his theories to help the society as a whole and the world as a whole figure out what is really going on as a world. And it has nothing to do about money at all. It's about change. This person's about change. It's about changing our minds, changing the way we think, and how we process things. The world needs to change, and it has already changed because of Albert Einstein. And he was a Jewish man. Albert Einstein. And yeah, he should be a part of Black History Month. And there are other notable scientists that were Black that are not mentioned at all, but the US takes advantage of their products and their innovations to society, and the United States doesn't even talk about them, and the Black community doesn't talk about it. All of a sudden you have the movie called Hidden Figures, and now all of a sudden because of the movie Hidden Figures, Black society is talking about STEM research and science research and technology research. That's good, STEM research is great, but we need to get back to the basics. We need to get back to more doctors, we need more doctors, we need more nurses, and we need more teachers. Let's get back to the basics of society. Let's get back to the basics. Before we try to fix anything else, let's fix the basics right here. Let's fix our health. Let's fix our mind. Let's fix our food. Before we try to do anything else. Yes, science research, science, STEM technology is good. Yes, it's great. We need more science research, yes. But we need to do what's needed most. And maybe science research can lead to a better development of medicine. Science research can lead to a better development of processing food for our society. Yeah, that's good. But we still need the basics. We still need medical physicians and medical doctors. We still need highly educated professors and highly educated teachers. We'll still need highly educated nurses as well as doulas. We need doulas in this country. They didn't even talk about doulas. We need people to help other people give birth. We need people to know how the birth process works. And it doesn't have to do anything about pro-life or pro-choice. We need people to help them have a healthy child and a healthy birth. We need doulas because there's a shortage of them. And where are those doulas going to come from? Where are those midwives going to come from? Where do most doulas and most midwives come from? They come from a high population that needs them the most. They come from Africa, they come from Russia, they come from China, and they come from India. India and Africa and Russia, that's where a lot of doulas come from. But the US population doesn't talk about the need for doulas. and midwives. They don't talk about that. And you know how old these midwives and doulas are getting? These old school midwives and these old school doulas are now up into their 60s and 70s and 80s. And eventually they're going to die off, not only with their generation, but with their science and technology to help give birth to a healthy child, a healthy baby. And that is the baby boomer generation. That is this generation right here of Albert Einstein that is dying off. But we're so highly involved in technology that we forget about the very basics of society. Doctors, teachers, doulas, cooks. Yeah, it's good to have cooks as well. Yeah, we need cooks. We need people to show us how to properly prepare our food instead of it being such a highly fast food processed generation. We need to get back to the basics of learning how to make an omelet, make scrambled eggs, make a pie, make homemade baked bread. We need people to learn how to cook. We need to get back to the basics of preparing and cooking food. People are so involved about eating fast food, eating burgers, eating fries, eating refrigerated burritos, eating refrigerated this, frozen that we don't even know how to cook food anymore. How do you put oil in a skillet? How does a skillet work? How does the stove work? I'm tired of the microwave. I want to know how to cook. Like my grandma used to cook. Well, you know what? Grandma is now slowly dying away. Who's going to teach me how to cook food for me and my family? Oh, you know, I order it down the restaurant down the street. No, honey, you need to know how to cook, male and female. And that baby boomer generation is slowly dying off. That baby boomer generation is slowly dying off. Grandma, grandpa, abuela, abuelo, they're slowly dying off. What are we going to do without somebody cooking Thanksgiving dinner for us? What am I going to do when I'm sick? I need my grandma's chicken noodle soup. What am I going to do? She passed away 3 years ago. Oh my God, I didn't know. This generation right here is slowly dying off. But you don't see that in the news. You don't see that in the news. And now what do we do when our grandfathers and our grandmothers slowly die off? Where are we going to get our help from? What's the United States going to do when we don't have the resources and the wisdom that we have anymore? Where are we going to get it from? Where's the United States as a country as a whole going to get its resources from? When we no longer have the resources that we need. Yeah, it's old. Yeah, it's old. It's old and it needs to be talked about over and over and over again. It needs to be talked about that, yeah, the baby boomer generation is dying. And not only are they dying, but they're taking away all the resources and all the tools with them. And the resource such as needing a doula or a midwife is going to go away as well as with the baby boomer generation. The Vietnam veterans, the World War I, the World War II veterans, they're all going to die away. Oh, we don't need them anymore. We got our own thing, we got our own technology. Civil rights is old. Civil rights were during the 50s. But just because it's old doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just because Albert Einstein was an old white guy, old Jewish guy, doesn't mean that we don't need his theories anymore. We need Albert Einstein every single day of our lives. We need this man right here every single day of our lives. We need him and his science and his theories every single day of our lives to understand what is really going on in the world and in my human brain and mind. Yeah, the theory of relativity. Yeah, we need Albert Einstein every single day of our lives. We do need it. Special relativity and general relativity. Talking about gravity. And you know the theory of relativity, And what goes up must come down. We need this man, and we need our immigration policy to change, because a lot of the resources that America has today is coming from other countries and other sources outside of ourselves. We ourselves as a country cannot feel the need that we lack. If you have a need, you can't just go to school or read a book to actually take care of yourself. You can't take care of yourself by yourself. You need somebody else to help take care of you or to help heal the sickness that you have. And a lot of these immigrants from other countries, like I said before, they're very highly educated. They have published research and published articles, published materials, and they have the experience and the resources to back them up. And they have communities, they have references, they have a whole bunch of people to back them up on what they say. But you don't want me into your country because of where I come from and because of my status. And you don't want my child into your school because of where they come from or because they're low income or don't have the right clothes. But you needed this man, you needed Albert Einstein during the 50s, and all of a sudden you don't want my Black child in your class. But you needed this just Jewish man, but you don't want my Black child? We really need to change that. The Brown versus the Board of Education, Plessy versus Ferguson, all that was put into law for a reason. All this was put into law for a reason. It was put into the law so people will know that it will not change. And all of a sudden you have schools that want to change the law for themselves to better themselves and to have more money for themselves. And these parents think that they are above the law just because they have money. You're not above the law. Money comes and money goes. This is a law right here for a reason. You can't change a law just because you have money. There's equal access and equal education and equal opportunities for everybody. And like I said, education is not a right. Education is not a right. It's a liberty that people take for granted. It's a freedom to be educated. You enjoy the freedoms to be educated. You don't have a right to education. It's a freedom. It's a freedom that people fight for. It's a freedom that people take advantage of. It's a freedom. It's not a right. It may be in the US Constitution as a right, but it's not a right. Because if it's a right, that means you have to fight for it and you have to die for it. I died for my right to education and I live for my right to education. And people actually thought like that, like, yes, I will die just to go to school. I will give my life just to attend the same classes as my white classmate. If people really thought about it like that, like they did in the 1950s, it would be completely different. I will die just to go to school. I will put my life on the line just to be able to have the same opportunities as other people. I will give my life just to be educated, which a lot of women and children in other countries do every single day. They walk hundreds of thousands of miles just for the opportunity and the freedom to be educated. In Africa, they walk to school. In other Middle Eastern countries, they walk to school every single day and they do not complain about it at all. Yes, I will give my life just to be educated every single day. Little kids, you see them on the news, you see them, Google them. Even right now in the new millennium. That's why Oprah has a school in Africa. That's why plenty of ministries have schools. So they can educate children from the communities. They want them to stay home and be wives and continue the same cycle of poverty. I give my life just to be able to go to school every single day. But people, they don't think like that. They think, oh, I'm entitled to an education. I have the right to be educated. You don't have a right to be educated for anything. Just talk to your grandfather, talk to your grandmother. Ask them if education is a right. Ask your grandfather, ask your uncle, is education a right? Is education a right? No, it's a freedom. It is a freedom. Just like happiness, just like liberty. Education is a freedom. We enjoy the freedoms of our liberty. We enjoy the freedoms to be educated. Highly educated. Every single day. We enjoy this freedom. And without this freedom, our country would not be what it is today. Black, white, Mexican, Arab, Muslim, Asian, Jewish, wherever you are, you enjoy the freedom to be educated that people live and die for every single day. We go to war just to be educated. We give our lives just to be educated. We give our lives for our freedoms, to stop being taxed, to choose our own religion, to choose our own freedoms. It is a freedom and a right at the same time. And many people take this for granted every single day just because they think, I have the latest iPhone, I have a brand new BMW, a Mercedes car, I have the hottest new clothes, the fashion, I have great expensive hair, I'm all that in a bag of chips, and I'm a famous celebrity, I'm a famous YouTube influencer. I have the right to be who I am because I am self-made and all that. You're never self-made. You didn't write by yourself for anything. Somebody else had to teach you to be you for where you are. Mariah Carey wasn't by herself. She didn't write by herself. She had somebody teach her. Whitney Houston had to have somebody teach her. Oprah had to have somebody teach her. President Obama had to have somebody teach him. It's a freedom. And the civil rights movement was an example, help people to understand that we will fight for our freedoms, for the same freedoms as a little Black girl, as a grown Black man. Everybody has the same freedoms and everybody has the same rights, no matter how old you are or where you come from. A little Black girl and an older Black man have the same rights in this movement. Just because you're a 6-year-old Black girl and just because you're a 50-year-old Black man with a family and 5 kids, it doesn't mean that one person is above another person. We all have the same liberties and we all are in the same movement together. That's what the civil rights was about. People, they don't think like that nowadays. All right, that's the end, part 2. I'm going to go a little bit into this deeper every single day, but this is a topic that needs to be addressed, as well as on the State of the Union address with President Trump, with President Obama, with Carter, with Bush, with Clinton. They need to address education, because I know during the Carter administration, he definitely pushed for education during his administration. He really pushed for education, free education, high quality education. And it was because of the Carter administration that the Department of Education and the FAFSA and all of that school grants came about, because of Jimmy Carter. It wasn't because of Clinton, it wasn't because of Bush, it was because of Jimmy Carter that the Department of Education came into force, and they were actually able to get grants for school education for everyone around today. So thank you, President Carter, for your administration. He's still around today. Thank you, President Carter, as well as the other current administration. So also thank you again to President Barack Obama and his staff for being the change we want to see and for going forward. So this is LaQueen Terry Battle here from upstate New York at Onondaga Community College. Thank you again to the library director. I met her today, Ms. Fantasia. I don't know her last name, but thank you to OCC Library for letting me host my YouTube channel. And thank you for all the people in the background. Thank you here to the YouTube platform, to Onondaga Public Library, to the Department of Education, to Syracuse University, to all the resources I'm able to use and to share my own personal opinions on what's going on in politics. I'm just starting. I'm not professional yet. I am a certified medical assistant. I do have a little bit of experience in the medical field. But if you guys want to contribute and want to do a tag along with me and my live videos, we can go ahead and tag along with each other as well. So we go ahead and link up together and do a YouTube live link as well. So I'm available to all new experiences as well. So I still have a lot to learn. I'm still struggling, but I know that just remember, please remember at all today. We need people, we need immigrants in our society, because without immigrants, the United States would not be where it is today. Number one, we need immigrants. We need these people in our country. We need immigrants. It doesn't matter where they come from. If they have the resources that we need them right now into our country. Especially if they have what we need them right here and right now. No matter where they come from, no matter how old they are, if we need them, they need to be here. Whether Mexican, Syrian, Arab, Muslim, wherever they are, if we need their resources, we need them here and we need them right now. Forget about immigration policy. Forget about borders. Forget about walls. We need them and they need us. Number two, education is a freedom. It is not a right. It's a right that people take advantage of, but it's a freedom that we enjoy every single day of our lives. The freedom to enjoy equal access and equal opportunity. The freedom to read, the freedom to go to school and interact with your teacher. A Black student interacting with a white teacher, that's a freedom. And people live and die for that freedom every single day. That's what we go to wars for. We go to wars for our freedoms and to protect our rights. We enjoy our freedoms and we protect our rights. We enjoy our freedoms and we protect our rights. Number one, we need immigrants in a society, because if they have what we need, then we need what they have. And they need to be right here to feel the life that we have. Number two, education is not a right, it's a freedom. And number three, the civil rights is not old. This right here needs to be stopped right now. Because you're not only hurting black kids, you're hurting your own kids. You're hurting your own children. Because you can't live in a tiny bubble just because you have money all your life. We need our children to be together, to contribute together, and to learn together. So that's how us as a culture learns. We need students with special needs and to be integrated back into the classroom. We need students with special needs to be integrated back into the classroom so they can catch up with the system and so they can learn how their peers act and interact and how we can learn from them and they can learn from us. Because if you segregate special needs students with themselves, they can't grow and they can't progress. And we can't learn from them. This right here, it needs to stop. All right, this is LaQueen Terry Battle from Upstate New York and Syracuse, New York at Onondaga Community College Library. Thank you to them that let me use their study rooms and media resources, and we love you so much. Continue to pray for my military family. My little brother, LaKen Jeremiah Harris, currently serving in the United States Marine Corps in Los Angeles. My military brother from elementary school, Charleston Burke, from all the way in 1995 at Academy in Fort Worth, Texas. I love you, Charleston. We're continually praying for you wherever you are in the world. Charleston, we need you. We love you, God, wherever you go through, woman and man, brother, Marine soldier. And then also to my Aunt Darlene Mercer, my Uncle Mandy Clay, my grandfather, Cleo Battle, and my high school sweetheart, Craig Eddie White, who has just retired from the United States Air Force, and also to all my family, Mary Johnson, who's a first, second lieutenant in the United States Army, everybody who has served, is currently serving in the United States Armed Forces, as well as all to the POW veterans who have given their lives and given their service to this country. We thank you, and we love you so much. So this is LaQueen Terry Battle from Upstate New York. I love you guys. Peace and much love.